Welcome to the Business Spotlight Series. My name is Dona Kappmeyer, and I'm going to be your host for today. I am very excited to have our special guest, Super Dave Quinn, on our show. Super Dave is the managing partner and chief inspiration officer of Day One Experts. Today, we're going to speak with Dave about his journey to get to where he's at today and the challenges and successes of owning and operating a business. If this is your first time on our channel, please be sure to like and subscribe so you can get notifications when we publish content. So, Super Dave, welcome to your show. It is so good to have you on.
Hey Donna, thanks for letting me be here. I really appreciate it. I love to share my story and I'm used to being on the other side asking questions. So it's always fun to get on this side and be asked questions. So thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Well, we are going to have some fun. And of course, I'm sure I know it's a top of mind for me, but it's probably on top of mind for our audience is how on earth did you get the name Super Dave?
Well, I appreciate that. And I actually started back in college. I was a bus driver, and my friends, we all like to watch Dave Letterman show, and Super Dave Osborne was this character that kind of did this stick, and so they started calling me that. And I realized when people on the bus, they started picking it up, right? They would say Super Dave the bus driver. And I figured out they started inviting me to parties. So pretty soon I could go to any bus stop along the route. If there was a party in that apartment complex, I would get invited and I could show up, knock on the door and say, "Hey, it's Super Dave, the bus driver." And somebody in there would recognize me and say, "Hey, let him in. He's really cool. He's a bus driver. Let him in." And so that's where it started. Fast forward to when I started in economic development in 2004. We went through a leadership program. And the gentleman asked the question of, who do you want to show up in the world as? We always put on this mask when we go out into the world, but most of us don't do it with intention. We just sort of do it. And he said, I really want you to think about who do you want to be when you show up in the world? And man, I got to thinking about, man, I loved being a bus driver and I loved the interaction between people. And people were always excited, we get on the bus and I'd talk to them. And I was like, I want to show up as that guy. I didn't have any all I was doing was helping people get from one place to the other. It was no pressure. I just liked how it made me feel. And so I decided that was going to be my nickname. And that was in 2004. And now fast forward to owning a business and everybody's telling you got to have a personal brand and you got to be memorable. And so I figured out there are a lot of Dave Quinns. If you Google Dave Quinn, you're going to get a writer for People Magazine. You'll probably get a hockey coach. Those guys I can't out Google. They're going to have more content than me. Super Dave, if you do that, Super Dave Osborne owns all of that. But if you Google Super Dave Quinn altogether, I own Google for like 3 or 4 pages, right? So it just became, and it's a reminder when I sit down and someone says, "Tell me about how you got the name." It's a reminder all over again. It's an intentional way I want to show up in the world. And I think, people sort of think it's a gimmick or something, but really it's a reminder for me that I can't show up if I don't feel like walking into a room and I can't show up as Super Dave and then not bring all of that energy with me. And so sometimes in business, as you know, as a business owner, we don't feel like doing all the things we have to do. And so it's my way of getting people to remind me to, hey, no, you got to bring this energy. And so hopefully that's what I do. And plus I can roll through Chick-fil-A and tell them that, they have a mobile order for Super Dave and they pull it up on the computer and without fail, they laugh and smile. And for that 1 second, I've made the world just a little bit better. And some days that's all we get. That's the only win all day long is I made somebody else smile. And if all it took was me calling myself Super Day, then, I can go to bed, rest a little easy that night. At least I made somebody's day.
I don't know that it gets much better than that because just within your name, and when we first met, I mean, you just showed up. You showed up as Super Dave. So it's just part of who you are. And just having that name gives you that ability. And as a reminder that that's who I have to be, but that's who you really are. I mean, that's pretty freaking cool.
Well, and it's not who I have to be. Like some people are like, man, it's hard to be that. I get to be that. Like I get to
Yeah.
choose how I show up. And what a blessing. I mean, some people
Yeah.
don't have the ability to do that. And so
Yeah.
I'm blessed. And it's just a reminder every day that, it's the small things we do in and out, the day in, the day out, little things that move the needle and make the world a better place, right? So it's not some big accomplishment. I hope that I'm able to do that someday. But at the end of the day, some days it's just making somebody else smile, and if
Yeah.
that's all it is, that's all it is.
Yeah, and that I mean, smile is a universal expression. So
Right.
every time I see your name and say your name, you make me smile, whether I'm
Oh,
talking to you
that's
or not.
awesome.
So
Well,
thank you.
that's part of the intention behind it.
You betcha. So let's talk a little bit about your business and Day One Expert. So what is it about? Let's hear a little bit of the
Sure.
background, how you got into that specific business, and what do things look like?
Okay. So I'm a 20-year veteran economic developer, certified. And in 2018, I was an economic developer working for a city. That's all I'd ever done. And I decided to leave and I went out and wanted to do a wellness business. So I started a business around wellness and mindset coaching and all this stuff. And that lasted about 9 months before I just couldn't make it happen. But throughout that time period, I kept getting asked to consult with other either cities who were trying to get something done that Frisco had done or on a business development deal who were trying to get incentives or some sort of help from a city, but they were having trouble figuring out how to package it. And so all throughout that 9 months, that kept coming up. And so when my first business kind of petered out, our partners came together. We were at Rudy's Barbecue. We're kind of talking about this, and we're like, "This is a business. We're playing at the intersection of private, public, and then we also have a third part where we bring capital to it. And those are the three components in any good development is you have somebody with an idea who wants to bring a project to bear, and then you have a
Hmm.
place that wants to happen, and then you have capital looking to park money in a really good deal. And a public-private partnership usually makes for a really good deal. And so we started Day One Experts in 2019, and we do fractional economic development. So we help cities who can't afford an economic developer. We are their expertise. It can be for a single project or it can be ongoing. We have several clients that we are the economic development team. And then we work on the private side. So we work with developers or business owners who are trying to expand their operations. They know they need assistance, but they don't know how to ask. And or they don't know that they can go ask the economic development. They're just trying to figure out how do I go from 10,000 square feet to 25,000 square feet, or how do I buy this equipment? And they don't realize that there's economic development resources available to them. And so we play in that space. And that's kind of Day One Experts in a nutshell. We do training and coaching, and I do speaking, and I've written a book and some other stuff. But at its heart, we're really playing in that intersection between the private sector who's looking for a place to do something, the public sector who's looking for private sector investment in their community, and then in capital partners who are looking for projects to invest in. And that's what we do.
The kind of the trifecta right there, for
Yeah, it's a good
sure.
space to play in.
Yeah. So when you're talking about, the private sector, who do you typically see? What's your outreach as far as your clients and those who are looking for
Yeah, so
opportunity?
we've actually we've kind of niched into the small to medium sized business owner. When you get large business owners, um, they typically have there's much larger site selection firms and firms that do that sort of work because there's a lot of incentives involved in that. And so they're willing to invest in it. What we do is help the smaller, you know, a 5 to say 50 or 100 employee manufacturer who's trying to expand into Texas or relocate. That's our sweet spot because there might not be a lot of cash incentives. And so what we've done is created a model where the communities are investing in our partnership and paying for our services. So it's a business concierge service,
Okay.
and the small business owner doesn't have to pay for that. And they're generally it's an owner or the owner's spouse who is Googling, I'm trying to figure this out, and they're overwhelmed by all the information, and all they need is someone they can talk to and then make a connection to kind of sort through the noise and the chaos and stuff. What we say is it's a big state and there's lots of opportunity
We'll
here.
pause right there, and we're going to start it cut off with what we say we are a. If you want to, we lost it. The internet just paused for some
Okay.
reason, and so if you want to start off with what we say we are a, and
Okay.
then I don't know what you said there. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
What we like to say at Day One is or Texas Economic Development Connection is that we're a lighthouse in the sea of information. When you get online and you're trying to find a place to expand in Texas, it gets overwhelming really quick. And if you're not from around here, you have no idea. You don't know
Yeah,
the difference in Houston and Dallas and Austin. When you're in the Metroplex, you don't know the difference between McKinney and Midlothian. You don't know those nuances. And that's what we are to the business owner. We help them sort through that and connect to the economic developer and find the right fit for them. And it doesn't cost the business owner. So that's kind of our purpose and our niche is that small to mid-size owner who actually owns the business. And this is a life decision. It isn't just I'm opening up a new node and I'm going to have it's a CEO and a team saying I'm going to go put some logistics money over here. It's a business owner who's picking up their family, moving across the country and trying to set up shop in Texas because they know it's a good fit, but they have no idea where they're going to live, what East Texas, West Texas, South Texas, they just don't know. And so we walk alongside them and help them through that very, stressful and chaotic time to try to bring some peace to it and reassure them that they're making good decisions.
that's fantastic. So, are the majority of these folks then they're coming from out of state, or are you
Yeah.
also working with folks in state?
Yeah, so we have two different models. If you're coming from out of state, there it's sort of a free version. When you're inside the state, our cities aren't paying us to move a person from Houston to Dallas. That's not our thing. I'm happy to help them, but the business owner then has to pay me at that point. So we help
Okay.
anyone. It's just who pays changes depending on where you're coming from. And again, those are just as important. If you're growing, you might have outgrown the city where you are, or you might be in a niche where your community isn't really interested in that. But two counties over or one county over is a town that is just dying to have what you have, and they're willing to invest in you. We can help you arrange those packages and incentives to help you get where you need to get to.
Fantastic. No, that is great. If you were to, for our audience and maybe those folks who are interested in your services, what are some tips, if you will, as you're screening folks, or what are some of those common things where like, hey, if you can have this, and this ready, right? So you're prepared when we have those conversations, what would you recommend to them?
What I always start with is know what it is that you need. Most business owners, they don't really know how to say that. They just say we need money. Well, we all need money, right? And most economic developers, while they have access to resources, doesn't mean they're standing in there with cash willing to dole it out. So understand what you're bringing to the table. You're creating jobs, you're creating property tax value, you're creating sales tax. You're bringing a lot more to the table and you need to understand that value and say it in a way that the city understand it. So what I always tell people is know what you need and then help give that to the economic developer to problem solve how to cross that bridge, right? There's some bridge you're trying to cross but you need some resources. So maybe it's a connection that they have. It may not be the incentive, but it may be that they have connections with the Texas Manufacturing Association, and somehow they get you some resources that helps you lay out a more efficient facility. Well, that's worth some real dollars to you, and it helps solve a problem that you have. And those are free resources. You just might not know about it. Workforce development. You might need a training program on a new CAD system that you're installing and it's going to cost you real money to train those employees. Well, if you partner with the economic developer, they unlock the door to workforce development dollars that may help you bridge that gap. So it may not be the economic developer that's handing you cash, but it's a connection that that economic developer can plug you into that helps solve a real problem for you. But it all starts with understanding what your real need is. And generally speaking, it's simply like we all need money. That's it,
Sure.
it's not money, it's resources. What resource are you trying to get to? And then allowing the city or the economic developer to sort of backfill and bridge that gap for you.
Are there any, potential prospects or companies that you're like, these are not good fits, or are there economic development corporations that you're working with that are there's some struggles around that? What are some of those lessons learned, if you will,
Yeah,
around both on
so
the private and on the economic development side?
that's great. I it's it can be challenging because every economic developer is different in how they approach, and sometimes they're giving different marching orders, right? So I always say in Collin County, here you have Frisco, McKinney, Allen, and Plano on the corners, big cities, all vastly different in what they incentivize and how they help and their approach. And so it may not be a good fit for the first one. It doesn't mean you can't ask another economic developer and it be something totally different. I think realizing that every city is different and unique in how they approach it, and I'm a very creative economic developer, and so I might not be able to hand you cash, but maybe I create some marketing cooperative that gets you what you need, some connection, infrastructure, and so it's really about um, understanding that we're not all created equal. It's not you can't go to while it's all the same, it's different in every community. It's what's so great about Texas is it's decentralized. So most of the money and incentives that you're going to get are at the local level, unless you're just a massive company and then the state's willing to play. But even that, most of the dollars come from a local investment. So really understanding what does the community want and value, and then how do you take your project and wrap it in a package that fits that need? And that's, sometimes it just doesn't. And you just got to understand that that doesn't fit in that city. Doesn't mean you can't go one city over and do something completely different. That's one thing that I think people get frustrated with, but it's also what makes Texas so great is you can move around the state and figure out where you're a good fit personality wise from a business and a vibe.
Yeah.
I was talking to a aerospace manufacturer, and they were coming from Florida, and they were coming into the Dallas Metroplex, and they were talking about where they needed to be and where they wanted to be, and they were thinking about Dallas, and I was like, well, are you going to do a lot of business? But they were saying a lot of their business was going to be on the Fort Worth side. And I had to explain, okay, if you set up in Dallas, you're going to have a separate number in Fort Worth because they're not going to take your call if you're from Dallas. And they're like, no, no, that's not true. I'm like, I promise you, it is true. If you want to do work, it's just nuance, right? Like it matters. And so those kind of things I think are important for the business owner to explain. Just because they said no in one place doesn't mean you don't fit in another. It's just you got to find the right community for what you're bringing to the table.
Let's dive into that a little bit more because I was gonna go to that next.
Okay.
So we've got, a lot of businesses coming to Texas.
Uh-huh.
And from a coaching perspective and your experience, what are you educating? Just like in that case, right? They're not going to talk to you. What other things are you finding you're having to educate folks as they become or they're new to Texas coming in, that it's good information for them to know?
So I think first and foremost is that you got to have a good business. It doesn't matter where you are, right? Like you need your business processes nailed down. You still have to do customer outreach. You still have to do all the things that you need to do as a business to be successful. Texas doesn't magically fix a broken business. Now, what it will do is if you're a struggling business and you're in an environment that it's hard for you to grow, but you've got something, it will help you be in it's like a different ecosystem, right? It's like going in from a rock arid landscape into a very fertile soil that's great for growth. And so they need to understand that if your business isn't great, moving it to Texas might not change that. You really
Mm-hmm.
need some of your basic business skills and stuff still have to do that. But I will tell you it's a heck of a lot easier in Texas than it is just about any other place because people are surprised by how helpful other business owners are when you get to Texas. We kind of tell them that. They think it's just a sales pitch. I can't tell you how many business owners I talked to from other states who said, I really kind of thought you were just whatever, making that up. It's not, that's just a sales pitch. They get here and realize they just ask for help, and there are other business owners, hey, they will jump in and try to help you make connections, build that. There's just an ecosystem, and we want people to be successful. Even at the community level, our goal is to make our businesses successful so that we all grow and benefit when they're successful. We realize that, and I think
Yeah.
that's catches people by surprise. and they sometimes come in and want to be very secretive and are afraid, and they don't do outreach, they don't connect with business owners, they don't network. Most of them don't know about economic development. They don't even know what that word is. They're used to the city costing them money every time they go, so they don't want to see anybody from the city. And I'm a big advocate. No, it even if you don't know how the economic developer can help you, just go tell them what you're doing, because we have access to so many different resources, and we might stumble upon somebody who is in a similar vein or something. And because you've talked to me, in the back of my mind, I'm just sort of thinking, oh, this would be a good connection for Bob. And if y'all knew each other, then some stuff could happen. And all I'm doing is connecting dots. And so I have to coach people to be open to that, especially when they're coming from states that are oppressive in their red tape and their um, approach, right? Like they're almost penalized for doing good. And so they're
Yeah,
used to that. Whereas in Texas, we don't penalize winners, right? Like we want winners. And
that's
so we're
right.
trying to figure out how to get more of them.
Very good. So when you look at the economic outlook, and let's look out 3 to 5 years, where do you see things going? What kind of trends do you see
Oh,
this being more of this? Uh, what does it look like?
yeah, that's a dangerous question. I have no idea. We're in a crazy world right now,
We
right?
are, for sure.
I will answer that. I will tell people it is crazy, and there's a storm, and it feels like a hurricane. And what do you do in a hurricane, right? Well, you try to find a safe harbor. And so Texas, I won't say there won't be losers and winners, and you won't feel pain in Texas. But what I will say is that you're going to feel less of it than if you were outside the harbor, right? Texas is a great place to come and sort of insulate yourself against the winds of the storm that are happening, right? Doesn't mean you're not going to have hard times. It doesn't mean that there aren't businesses that are going to struggle. There's a lot of industries right now that are just challenged, but there's also a lot of industries that are sort of taking off. And so, better to be inside the harbor. And so when I always tell people, you know, when they're looking at it on a kind of, you got to pick your eyes up, because locally we're thinking, oh my gosh, it's bad. It's bad for Texas, right? Like we're used to, going wall to wall gangbusters. But you get outside of Texas and they're like, we would die to have just a glimpse of what you guys have. And so it's all about perspective. And so I would say the next 3 to 5 years for Texas is going to be outstanding. We're going to continue to see the in migration. One, you have talent moving here
Yeah,
from all over. That's
yeah.
this facts, right? And I don't know the numbers. You can look them up if you want to challenge me on that. But I just know that people are moving here, and so where there's good talent, businesses are following, because we've dealt with so many business owners who were struggling to compete for talent in the state where were at, moved to East Texas. That's a crazy story. Guy moves from the Bay Area, right? Is in the HVAC system world, and he has all these ideas and stuff, but he can't get the engineering talent he needs because Google and other people are stealing it. He moves to East Texas. It's like starts like 7 or 10 patents, and his business explodes because of this talent that we're able to bring to the marketplace. And so I think we're going to continue that realm. Now, again, I don't know what that looks like. I have no idea what the next, global pandemic thing might hit or whatever. I
Mm.
do know that people over and over though said that, that taught them, that where you are matters, and that, they were looking to Texas and saw what happened during that time and said, I'm going to be in a place where, I can survive and thrive. And that's what they're doing.
Beautiful. As coaches and speakers, we have to share the information and help others, but we have to get that inspiration from either books or mentors and the like. So when you think about those people or those books that have inspired you, what are your one or two or three top that you could point to that have really influenced your life?
Man, I hate it's like asking me which was my favorite kid. And because I'm an avid reader, I read a book and a half a week, have for
Beautiful.
decades, right? And I told you I looked at your bookcase and I was like, oh, I know that one, I know that one.
That's
I
right.
will tell you the book that one, I read the Bible, just putting that out
Beautiful.
there. That's, that goes without saying. Okay, there's that every day. The second one that really changed my life was QBQ, the question behind the question, right? Where you turn from a victim mentality and you start asking better questions. You get better answers when you ask better questions. That was one. Um, recently, a good read. I like John Acuff. His book Soundtracks was really, really impactful to me because I always wanted, you go to a movie and there's always this soundtrack playing,
Yeah.
and I always was like, man, it'd be so cool if my life had a soundtrack behind it. Right? I always wanted that. And in today's world, now we have all the music in the world, and so I've put together soundtracks that make me feel different ways, but it's all about this mental soundtrack and what we say to ourselves and how we speak to ourselves matters a lot. I speak to a lot of groups, and um, women tend to be much worse at this, or they're more critical of themselves than men are. I won't say men don't do it, but my wife, I listen, I'm like, I don't know why y'all do that to yourselves, like women. Like, I don't know if you do it, but and so anyway, soundtracks was one of those that really moved the needle for me. And then I'm a big Gary Vee fan and Seth Godin. So anything by Seth
Nice.
Godin, I've read all his books multiple times, have them on auto. I listen to those a lot on Audible. And Gary Vee, Gary Vaynerchuk. And so those are sort of I love those authors. And yeah, so I can't name just one. It's just too hard.
That's okay, right? Especially when you read so many, but you heard it. And some of the most successful leaders in the world read a book a week. So if you're
Yeah.
listening to this, read a book a week. If you can't do a book a week, do a book every other week. Get it on audio if you travel a lot, whatever that is for you. But the you can't out earn what you learn. So take that advice. Um,
And it's amazing, like Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar and
yeah,
all these guys, like just have it on. You don't even have to
yeah,
really be paying attention. Like I've learned that stuff sneaks in your mind, and sometimes it's better if it sneaks in than if you're trying to learn it. And ideas will resonate and bubble to the top, and you're like, where'd that come from? And you realize, well, that was something you heard in some book, and it's amazing. I'm a big believer in you have to read. I cringe when people say, "Well, I'm just not a reader." Okay, well, get somebody to read to you, right? Like
yeah,
Audible is awesome
yeah.
because you can just put it on. You can mow the lawn, you can go for walks, you can do anything and just let people read to you.
Beautiful. Well said. Well said. What other information would you like to share with our audience today?
You know, I just want to encourage people that times it is crazy, right? Like we're in crazy times. I always tell people what you can do to impact your world more than anything else is always start with love. Every day you get up, you have the opportunity to love the people that are in your house. And if you will start there, because it might be the only time all day long they get love, right? The whole world can be ugly and nasty and stuff. So whoever's in your house, whether it's your kids or your spouse or your dog, whatever, start by loving those people. Love yourself, right? Look in the mirror, tell yourself you love them because it may be all day long. That's all the love you're gonna get.
That's right.
But I honest to goodness, I have this thing that I start with a lot of my talks. I always say start with love, and I tell people for 30 days, if you will, when you leave the house, every human interaction you have, if you'll look that person in the eye and say, I love you. Now, you don't have to say it out loud because that's kind of weird and it gets all kind of funky when you tell people, unless you have that kind of environment at work. But if you'll just say it in your head, there is this emotional thing that passes between you and they won't even know it and you won't know it. But something happens and your reaction to them changes, especially the people that you can't stand. You know, that person in the office that is just like drives you nuts? Do it 30 days and I promise you you will transform that relationship. It'll be weird, you won't know how, but I promise you it changes everything. And that is how we're going to impact our world. We can't like I can't worry about what's going on halfway around the world, but I can
Yeah.
worry about the person I pass on my walk in my neighborhood. I can smile and say hi, and I can say I love you before I get to them. And it's sort of this weird, I don't I don't know what it is. I just know scientifically they're proving that this stuff happens. Energy moves stuff.
Yes, it does.
And
Indeed.
so the most powerful energy in the world is love. And if we could just get more people giving just a little bit of that out, it will ripple throughout your community. And anyway, that's my thing. I think I would encourage in business before you pick up a sales call, before you have a hard negotiation, before you do anything, if you'll pick it up and in your mind see that person and say I love you before you start, 30 days from now it will transform your business. I guarantee it.
You are spot on and good, good, good advice. More love, less judge, and the world will be a much better place.
Oh, wouldn't that be awesome? Now I promise you, I have to tell myself that every day because
Yeah,
there are some,
sure.
my my kids have started saying, Dad, that's not very loving. Because,
You're like,
I'm in
dang
the
it, you're
car and,
smart.
and whatever. Like sometimes I have to be reminded
Yeah.
because like I'm frustrated too, right? I'm natural human, our natural self isn't to be that way, but that is what we're called to do. That's like it's pretty simple. It's really we don't have to crush stuff. It's just do the little things. Show
Yeah.
up with love and it makes a difference.
Oh my goodness. Well, Super Dave, this has been so much fun. Is there a good way for folks to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so D1 Experts, letter D, number one, experts.com is our website. You can Google Super Dave Quinn and you'll see any and all the things that we do. You'll find me, I promise. And that's probably the best way. We have a podcast called Gone to Texas Podcast. You can go to gone to Texas podcast.com and see that. We have Texas Economic Development Connection.com, which is for business owners looking to relocate or expand. We'd love to meet you there. Um, and yeah, so that's the ways to do that. And looking forward again, even if you don't know how we can help, just reach out. Happy to spend 15 or 20 minutes giving you some direction and free advice and help you get you on your way. And hopefully someday that you'll remember us and pass that back and we'll benefit some way down the road.
Well, I don't think that people are going to forget you. I'm just going to say that right now.
Well, I hope this has been helpful. I
Oh,
never know. It's so hard to I don't know if it matters or what. I'm 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 just I'm just a country boy from East Texas, trying to make my way in the world. And if I can help, and if I go to bed tonight and somebody was better off because I lived, then I'll take it.
well, thank you. Well, I think lots of people are going to be better off. I know I am from getting to know you. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for what you bring to the world. That not enough people recognize the importance of coaching and having someone else speak into your life. I think that's a challenge. As business owners, we grind and we don't want to admit that we don't know or that we can't do it on our own. And I know it's a lonely business. I do know that having become a business owner is a very lonely place, right? You pick a
Yeah.
road that is just built. People don't understand what you're going through. They don't understand why you're doing it. They don't
Yeah.
understand why would anybody sign up for the pain and aggravation, but we do it anyway. And so you need someone that you can talk that will talk into your life that understands what you're going through, that can sort of say, hey, look, you're sane. It's okay to feel this way. You're going to be okay. Let's move
That's
on to the
right.
next thing. And it's important. So thank you for what you're bringing to the world as well.
Well, thank you, Super Dave, and thank you so much for sharing your story and providing your insights. This has been extremely fun, and I know our audience is going to benefit just the way I'm going to be biased to say I've benefited a whole lot more than the audience, but that's okay. That's just me. This is a Business Spotlight series with Donna Kappmeyer and Super Dave with Day One Experts. Please be sure to like and subscribe so you can get our content when we publish it. Super Dave, thank you so much again for being on our show.
Thank you, and I appreciate you having me.
All right. Bye for now.